This happened last summer. I was 34 and struggling after losing my job as a historian. I was looking for something to keep me busy. The Rutherfords estate had always fascinated me. It was built in 1762 and was full of secrets. The townsfolk spoke about it with whispers. As a kid, I always wondered what lay inside. I finally stepped into the mansion. The air was stale and heavy. I walked down the long hallway, looking at the peeling wallpaper. The creaky floorboards made me uneasy. I stumbled upon a dusty desk tucked in a corner and opened a drawer. Inside, there was an old journal. The leather cover was cracked. The yellow pages told a story about a family and two twins who vanished without a trace. The basement was mentioned too, as a place of strange happenings. My heart raced. I felt a pull to the basement. That night, I decided to go down there. I felt nervous as I flicked on my flashlight. The stairs creaked under my weight. I hesitated at the bottom. It was darker than I imagined. I thought I heard a noise, a faint sound, almost like laughter. I took a deep breath and stepped inside. The room was filled with old boxes. I shined my light around, brushing my fingers against the cold wall. I felt something crawl under my skin. Every visit afterward was odd. I felt like someone was watching me. I kept noticing shadows moving in my peripheral vision. I also thought I heard children giggling from somewhere deep in the shadows. It made my stomach twist. I'd stop and wait for silence, but then it would just come back, heavy and thick. It made me wonder about the twins. Where did they go? Were they trapped in this house? One evening, I stood in the basement, frozen. I suddenly heard whispers. They were close, too close. I turned, but there was no one there. My heart raced. I felt a chill seep into my bones. There was something down there, and I was scared. After that night, I left the mansion confused. I began to fear the twins might have suffered something dark and twisted. I felt that the house wanted me to dig deeper. Late one night, as I turned to leave, something stopped me. I was sure I heard a voice clearer than ever before. "Help us." I opened the door wider, fighting the knot in my throat. I stepped back, my breath quickening. Shadows flickered at the edges of my flashlight beam, and then I saw them. Two figures, small and pale, stood there across the room. The twins. I wanted to scream but couldn't find my voice. "Why are you here?" I finally managed to ask, my heart pounding. "Help us," they whispered again. Their eyes were black holes pulling me in. I felt the weight of their presence pressing against me. Every instinct screamed for me to escape, but I couldn't move. The house held me as tightly as the twins did. The air was charged with something unsettling. I was trapped just like them. Then, just as quickly as they appeared, they vanished like smoke. The emptiness swallowed me whole. I stumbled back, almost tumbling down the stairs. I was alone again, but not really. I could feel the weight of their plea still hanging in the air. What had become of those twins? What darkness was hidden in that basement? I leaned against the wall, my heart racing. I knew I had to go back. The next day, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to return. The twins' whispers echoed in my mind, pulling me back to that dark room. I decided to dig deeper into the history of the Rutherfords. Maybe there were answers hidden in the town archives. That I visited the local library, a small, dimly lit place filled with dusty books and old newspapers. The librarian was an elderly woman with thick glasses. I approached her, trying to hide my unease. "I'm looking for information about the Rutherfords, particularly the twins." She raised an eyebrow, curiosity mixing with caution. "People don't tend to discuss them. It's a tragic story." That caught my attention. "What happened?" She sighed, fingers tapping the edge of her desk. "They disappeared one summer's day, just like that. The family was distraught. Some say it had to do with the basement." I leaned in, eager for more. "What do you mean?" "Their mother was deeply involved in the occult," she whispered. "Rumors say she practiced dark rituals to communicate with the spirit world. After the twins vanished, the family fell apart. Hearing this only intensified my fear." "Do you know if anyone ever found out what happened to them?" She shook her head. "No, but some claim they still haunt the estate, caught in a loop of despair." I felt a chill run through me. Could their mother's practices have trapped them? I left the library, my mind racing. The words dark rituals spun around like a storm. I needed to confront whatever was down in that basement. That evening, armed with newfound determination, I returned to the mansion. I felt the familiar pull as I descended the basement stairs. This time, I was ready to face whatever awaited me. Once inside, the shadows felt thicker. I switched on my flashlight, its beam trembling across the stacks of old boxes. As I brushed my fingers against the wall, I noticed a series of scratches. They looked recent, as if something had clawed at the wood. My stomach dropped. Then came the laughter again, softer but unmistakable. The same eerie giggle that haunted my nights. I turned, eyes scanning the dim room. But again, there was nothing until I spotted an old wooden chest hidden behind some crates. It was unusually ornate, decorated with strange symbols that mirrored the ones I had seen in the journal. I approached it cautiously. My hands trembled as I reached for the lid. I hesitated, the laughter growing fainter but more persistent. A drop of sweat slid down my back. I needed answers. If the twins were trapped, could this chest hold the key? With a deep breath, I lifted the lid. That's when everything went dark. The light from my flashlight flickered, then died. I was left in complete darkness, heart racing. I could feel something in the air, a presence, thick and suffocating. Help us. The voice whispered again, clearer than ever, coming from the chest that I froze. The twins were close. I had to act fast. But before I could move, I heard a creak behind me. Someone was in the house. My breath caught in my throat. I had braced myself for many things, but another presence was not one of them. My instincts screamed to run, to escape the darkness that pressed in on me. But I was trapped in the basement, with no light and a voice begging for help echoing in my mind. "Who's there?" I whispered, trying to sound brave, but the tremor in my voice gave me away. The only response was silence, thick and heavy. I squinted into the dark, straining to see anything. Another creak sounded, sharper this time, followed by the unmistakable scuff of shoes on the floorboards. Panic surged as I gripped the edge of the chest. Whatever was lurking was getting closer. "Is someone there?" I called again, louder, feeling foolish for even asking. A chill ran through me as I clutched the lid tighter. I had been drawn to this place for answers, not to become a victim of whatever haunted it. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. Maybe if I spoke to the twins, I could ease their fears. "If you're here, I can help you. Just tell me what you need." There was a pause, and then the voice responded, more urgent now. "Find us." It echoed in the darkness, accompanied by a sudden gust of cold air that seemed to sweep through the room. The crates I had pushed aside rattled slightly. "What do you mean?" I stammered, desperation creeping in. "Where are you?" The room was silent. The laughter had stopped, but I could sense a shift in the air. I moved instinctively toward the sound of the creaking. I had to see who or what was there. I lifted my foot cautiously, preparing to step forward, though part of me screamed to turn back. And then, in an instant, the flashlight flickered back to life, illuminating the basement once again. Relief washed over me, but it was short-lived. I was not alone. Standing in the corner was a face I recognized from the old photographs, the twins' mother. Her eyes seemed to glow, hollow and desperate, and as she moved closer, I could see the depth of sorrow etched into her features. "Help us," she pleaded, her voice a haunting whisper that sent chills down my spine. I stumbled backward. Was she a spirit too? "What happened to you? Where are the twins?" "Trapped," she answered, her voice quivering. "I did not mean to, I only wanted to reach them. You must find the answer in the symbols." Suddenly, the chest behind me rattled. The energy in the room shifted as if amplified by her words. I glanced back at it, the strange symbols glowing softly, pulsating with something I couldn't comprehend. "Please, you must help us before it's too late." The urgency in her voice pierced through the shadowy air. "What do I need to do?" I asked, breathless, my heart racing. The weight of their despair settled over me. "I couldn't just stand here. Do not let darkness take them," she said, before her form flickered and vanished into thin air, leaving only her lingering cry, "Find the truth." The basement fell silent again. I stood frozen, hands still poised over the chest, fear and determination warring within me. I knew I had to understand the symbols and what they meant. That was my only chance, and it felt like time was running out. What was lurking beyond this world? What had the mother become, and could I really save the twins? As uncertainty washed over me, I sensed that whatever dark force was tied to this place was closing in. I was not finished yet. I needed to uncover the truth, and I was prepared to face whatever awaited. But in the depths of my mind, one question gnawed at me. What if I wasn't strong enough? I reached out trembling fingers toward the chest. The symbols glowed more brightly as I approached, pulling me in like a magnet. I felt like I was on the edge of something massive, a discovery, or perhaps a downfall. Couldn't let fear win. What do you mean by the symbols? I asked into the stillness, but there was no reply. The air was thick with anticipation. Charged. Couldn't ignore it. Taking a deep breath, I placed my hand on the chest and opened it. Dust and old memories wafted up, and I gagged at the musty scent. My flashlight beam sliced through the darkness, revealing a stack of papers. The symbols were drawn all over them, intricate and foreign, swirling together in a way that felt almost alive. "Okay," I muttered, straightening myself. "Let us see what you have to say." As I carefully spread them out, I noticed a pattern. Some symbols looked familiar, as if I had seen them in old books about local legends. Others were strange but seemed to resonate within me. I flipped through the pages, heart pounding, searching for meaning. But then, I heard it, a soft whisper at first, then a crescendo of words swirling around me. "Help us. Find the key, unlock the door." The intensity of the voices made the hair on my arms stand up. They surrounded me, echoing through the basement like an unseen storm. My fingers shook as I scoured the papers, hoping to find whatever it was that could help the twins. Suddenly, a loud bang interrupted me. I whipped around, flashlight darting toward the sound, illuminating the shadows that seemed to stretch and pulse along the walls. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. "Is someone there?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. But only silence responded, deeper this time, heavier than before. Returning my focus to the chest, I noticed a small compartment hidden beneath a loose panel. My heart raced. I pulled at it until it gave way, revealing a tarnished key that glinted dully in the dim light. A sense of urgency surged through me. Could this be the key? At that moment, a cold breeze whipped through the room, snuffing out my flashlight. I stumbled backward, heart racing as darkness enveloped me once more. I fumbled for my phone, praying it had enough battery to give me light. I found it and turned it on, the screen struggling to shine in the thick air. I was shaken, wondering if I was still alone, if the whispers were just my mind playing tricks. That S when I saw it. In the corner, faintly illuminated by my phone's glow, shadows morphed into the shape of two small figures. They were transparent but recognizable, the twins. Their eyes were wide with fear but locked onto the key in my hand. "Help us," they echoed harmoniously, their voices now clear. "You have to find the door." Fear gripped me, and for a moment I felt frozen in place. But I couldn't let them down. I lunged for the key, my breath quickening, resolve hardening. I had to uncover the truth for them. As I turned to discover where the door might be, I could see a new darkness gathering at the edges of the room. I knew it was the force their mother had warned me about. The darkness was rising, threatening to consume all of us. Then, a new thought struck me. What if unlocking the door led to something worse? What if I unleashed the darkness instead of freeing the twins? But before I could think further, a sudden wave of dread washed over me. From the depths of darkness, a low growl rumbled. I realized I was out of time. "Find the door," the twins insisted, their faces pleading. There was no turning back now. I had to act. Whatever was waiting, I was going to confront it head-on, armed with not just the key, but my determination to find the truth. I took a step toward the shadows, ready to unlock my fate. I stepped closer to the shadows, my heart thudding in my chest. The twins watched in a surreal silence, their expressions a mixture of hope and terror. I could feel the darkness contrasting against the warmth of their faint glow. "Where do I find the door?" I whispered, uncertain. But the only response was the tightening chill in the air, making my skin prickle. I glanced around, searching for anything that might lead me to a hidden door, a way to their freedom. The growling noise grew louder, reverberating through the basement. It felt like it was coming from all directions, each sound echoing my growing dread. I searched the walls for a sign, an outline, anything that might reveal itself. Then something caught my eye, a slight shimmer on the wall to my left. I stepped closer, squinting at the faint glimmer. It was a line of symbols carved into the wood, barely visible beneath layers of grime and dust. One symbol, resembling a keyhole, glowed in harmony with the key resting in my palm. I felt a surge of hope. This had to be it. "Is this the door?" I asked the twins, who nodded silently, their forms flickering with urgency. I reached out and brushed my fingers against the carved symbols, tracing their shapes. The moment my skin made contact, the cold darkness around me shifted. The growl turned into a sharp hiss, like a breath being drawn back. "Unlock it," the twins urged, their voices urgent but strained. A flicker of resolve ignited within me. I didn't have time to hesitate. I slammed the old key into the symbol, matching its shape, my hands trembling. The moment I turned the key, the basement shook as if it were alive. Dust fell from the ceiling, and shadows writhed along the walls, twisting and curling as if they were in pain. I had never felt anything like it. Suddenly, the wall splintered with a cracking sound. A low light seeped through the cracks, illuminating the basement in a way I had never seen before. Pulsating energy washed over me, pulling me toward the source. But then the hissing intensified, now a chorus of angry wails that soaked the room in despair. The shadows swelled, taking on more shape, more form. I stumbled back, my heart racing. "What have I done?" I gasped, panic rising. The twins were pleading, but their words were drowned out by the wretched sounds. I had needed to act, but unlocking the door might have unleashed something far more dangerous than I imagined. The atmosphere felt thick, almost suffocating. The wall felt alive under my fingers. The light was blinding, and yet it drew me closer, beckoning me to dive into the depths of whatever lay beyond. "Stay with us," the twins urged, their hands reaching out toward me. "I'm trying," I shouted back, torn between fear and the desire to help them. I glanced at the glowing key, desperate for clarity. That S when everything went dark again, the light disappearing as quickly as it had appeared, and the growling returned, now louder and more furious. It felt like something immense was awakening, poised to strike. Lost and terrified, I had to make a choice. But before I could decide, a sound sliced through the tension, an unthinkable revelation. A voice echoed in the dark, low and menacing. "Your fate is sealed." With that, the shadows lunged. The air pulsed with energy as the shadows lunged toward me. I felt as though I was caught in a dream, where movement felt sluggish and reality twisted. I stumbled but didn't fall, my feet barely keeping pace with the panic surging through my veins. "Get back," I yelled. I was unsure who I was shouting to, myself or the twins. They remained fixed in place, their expressions growing more desperate. The shadows twisted into forms I couldn't define. Were they human? Animal? I couldn't tell, but the intent in their movements stirred an instinctual fear. With a roar, they were upon me, and I raised my arms defensively. Then, in a moment of sheer desperation, I remembered the key. It glowed faintly in my palm, a stark contrast to the encroaching dark. Without thinking, I pressed it against the wall, the shimmering symbols now vibrating as if alive. "Let them go," I shouted, my voice echoing back to me. "You don't have to do this." But the shadows didn't respond. They lunged again, a wave of dark fury and sorrow. Just as they reached me, I felt a force push back against them from the wall, and the air exploded with light as the symbols intensified. Dazzling energy surged forward, illuminating everything. I squinted against the brilliance. Shapes began to dissolve, and it felt like the dark entities were being repelled. A scream pierced the air, a cacophony of fury, then silence. I stood breathless, utterly alone. The basement was still now, as if the world had shifted on its axis. The twins were gone, leaving only a lingering echo of their pleas. I looked around, disoriented. That S when I saw it, the door that had materialized amidst the fading shadows. It was old but intact, adorned with carvings similar to those in the walls. The key felt hotter against my skin. I didn't think twice before approaching. Is this it? I murmured to no one, feeling a mixture of terror and hope. I inserted the key into the lock, my heart racing. As I turned it, I held my breath, waiting for failure or freedom. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a slight glow from within. I stepped forward cautiously. My instincts screamed at me to run, but curiosity pulled me deeper into the unknown. Inside was a narrow corridor that felt endless, lit by a soft golden glow. The walls were lined with paintings of people I didn't recognize, their faces twisted in expressions of pain and despair. My stomach churned as I remembered the terrible whispers from before. Had they once been like the twins? I pressed on, fighting the dread threatening to overwhelm me. What lay at the end of this corridor? And what had I unleashed that lurked in the shadows? Just ahead, I spotted movement, a faint flutter at the corner of my eye. I froze. There was something at the end of the corridor, and I felt drawn toward it, yet terrified of what I might find. Then I heard a soft voice, familiar like a distant memory, called my name. Help us! I took a step forward, and fear clawed at my mind. Who is there? I asked, my voice trembling. Just as I prepared to answer the call, a chilling thought hit me. What if the shadows were not the only things I needed to fear? The voice whispered my name again, clearer this time. It hung in the air, filled with urgency, yet coated in something soft and inviting. Help us! I hesitated, my heart pounding as dread warred with a strange pull towards the sound. I took another cautious step forward. The corridor felt like it was closing in on me. The paintings on the walls seemed to watch, their eyes filled with a deep sorrow that settled in the pit of my stomach. I squinted towards the flicker of movement. Could it be the twins? Were they trapped in whatever this place was? Is anyone there? I called, hoping for a sign, a flicker of something human. The glow at the end of the corridor shifted. It beckoned me, but I felt cold sweat trickling down my back. Just as I reached out, the air thickened, and I stumbled back into the shadows. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the corridor, rising like a storm. Panic surged as the walls vibrated, and the floor seemed to twist beneath me. With each tremor, the paintings shimmered, and the faces of the people seemed to cry out. Then, at the end of the corridor, a figure emerged from the light. At first glance, it looked like a child, hair tousled, eyes wide with fear. My breath caught in my throat. It was a girl, but her presence felt wrong, almost too still. Help us! She begged again, stepping into the light. But as she did, the glow dimmed, revealing the shadows trailing behind her, those same twisted shapes I had fought moments ago. Stay back! I shouted instinctively, but the girl only stepped closer, her expression shifting to something I couldn't decipher. It morphed from fear into something else, something darker. What have you done to them? I demanded, feeling the weight of dread settle around me. Each breath felt heavy, weighing me down as I tried to process the dread in her gaze. Come with me, please, she urged. You have to understand. Her voice was a blend of innocence and desperation that nearly broke me. Before I could answer, the shadows surged forward again. The air twisted with their fury. Instinct took over, and I turned to run back toward the door, my feet pounding against the floor. I had to get out. I had to find the twins. But as I stumbled back, the corridor began to shift again. The walls seemed to pulse, and blaring whispers echoed around me, drowning out my thoughts. Help us! Help us! They grew louder, echoing off the walls, igniting a fresh wave of panic. In that moment, I caught a glimpse of the girl's true form. Her face morphed into a mask of anguish. Just as I reached the door, its glow flickered, a warning that chilled my blood. I turned the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Panic turned to terror as the shadows lunged, their forms becoming more defined, filled with a malicious hunger. I felt trapped between the door and the approaching darkness. Then I realized, I might not be the only one locked in this nightmare. The girl was no mere innocent. She was something driven by their despair. "What do you want from me?" I screamed. But the shadows answered only with silence. And then everything went dark. I blinked against the darkness that enveloped me. The shadows had swallowed the corridor, but I felt an unfamiliar chill wrap around me, sharper than anything I had experienced before. My heart raced, but I pushed myself to focus. I couldn't succumb to fear, not yet. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling in the pitch black. The emptiness swallowed my words, leaving behind an unsettling echo that felt like an invitation. I strained to see, but there was nothing, just thick, suffocating darkness. Then I felt the faintest flicker of light behind my closed eyes. It wasn't much, but it provided a sliver of hope. I concentrated, reaching for that light, and slowly it grew. Images began to shift in my mind, fragments of hazy memories overlapping with the present. I saw the girl, her features distorted but familiar. She was pleading, "Help us." Her voice echoed again, this time more defined. I jolted, my senses heightening. I wasn't imagining things. The light brightened, revealing a narrow patch of ground beneath me. Felt solid. I opened my eyes, and to my shock, I found myself in a room, an old, dusty space littered with forgotten relics. Tall stacks of boxes loomed around me, but it was the shadows that seeped from the corners that held my attention. They writhed as if they had a life of their own. I staggered back, trying to shake off the disorientation. A large window caught my eye, streaked with grime, the slightest glimmer of twilight filtering through. It was a small comfort, a reminder that I wasn't entirely alone. Suddenly, I recalled the twins. "Where are you?" The question echoed inside my head, along with the weight of urgency pressing against my chest. I needed to find them. If they were here, I had to save them. That I felt a strange pull toward an old mirror hanging on the wall. Its frame was ornate, but the glass had turned murky, almost like a gateway. I approached cautiously, my steps hesitant. As I reached out to touch the surface, I gasped. The reflection wasn't mine. In the glass, I saw the girl again. This time, she was not just a figure. She stood behind me, a ghostly silhouette amidst darkened shapes. Her eyes were wide with despair, and I could see now that they mirrored the pain surrounding us. "You need to trust me," she whispered, her voice trembling as if it was stretching across time. "What do you mean?" I found my voice, shaky yet demanding. "What happened to the twins?" The shadows stirred with emotion as if they were listening. The girl raised a hand, and the shadows shifted slightly, revealing glimpses of two small figures huddled together. I stood frozen, recognizing the familiar hair and clothes of the twins. "Please," she said, desperation lacing her tone. "You have to get them out before it's too late." Before I could react, the room trembled again. An ominous wind whipped through the space, scattering dust and debris. The shadows intensified, lunging at me with a growl. They were trying to keep me from moving forward. My instincts kicked in. I stepped back, heart pounding, and gripped the edge of the mirror. Maybe there was a way through. I took a deep breath and prepared to plunge into whatever lay beyond. But just before I could act, the mirror shattered. Chunks of glass flew in all directions, and I screamed, barely ducking in time. I stumbled into the room, and in that moment of chaos, I caught sight of something glimmering amidst the pieces. That S when I saw it. A key, glinting in the fading light, and beneath it, a dark opening leading deeper into the unknown. I hesitated for a moment, staring at the key. It seemed ordinary, yet something about its glint felt charged with importance. My hands trembled as I picked it up, cold and heavy in my palm. I glanced back at the shattered mirror, the image of the girl still fresh in my mind, her plea echoing with urgency. I had to move. I had to save the twins. I approached the dark opening that yawned at my feet. The shadows seemed to swirl around the edges, drawing me closer. I steadied my breath and stepped forward, sliding the key into my pocket. I could feel my heart pounding, each beat echoing the urgency I felt inside. This was a risk, but the thought of the twins grounded me. The passage led me down a narrow staircase, its steps creaking in protest. I clutched the railing tight, half expecting the shadows to clamber up after me. As I descended, the air grew colder, almost biting at my skin. I could barely see, relying on the faint light trickling in from above. At the bottom of the stairs, the air shifted. An acrid smell hung heavy, and I could now see more debris, old boxes, decaying furniture, and discarded toys, remnants of lives long gone. A frigid draft slithered through the space, sending a shiver down my spine. Stay focused, I whispered to myself, forcing my legs to move deeper into the maze of forgotten items. I stepped into a wider area, littered with objects that seemed to breathe history. That's when I heard it, a faint sound, haunting and delicate. Cries. I froze, straining my ears to catch more. It was definitely there, layered within the heavy silence, soft yet pleading. I followed the sound, heart racing as it grew louder. The twins were close. I could feel it in my bones. Suddenly, a door punctuated the darkness ahead, slightly ajar. I rushed toward it, the cries intensifying. I couldn't hold back the surge of hope washing through me. As I braced myself to push the door open, I hesitated. Something felt off. The shadows coiled around the doorframe, whispering secrets I couldn't understand. My instincts flared again, warning me of danger lurking just beyond. I took a quick glance behind me. The narrow stairwell looked inviting in contrast to the foreboding shadows swirling around me. But I couldn't turn back. Not now. With a deep breath, I pushed the door open, its hinges groaning as it swung wide. Inside was a small, dimly lit room. The flickering of a lone candle provided the meager light, casting long shadows that danced against the walls. And there they were, the twins. They sat huddled together on the floor, their faces pale and eyes wide. Relief surged through me for a moment, but it was immediately tempered by the warning bells ringing in my head. As I stepped forward, a new sound emerged, a deeper growl rumbling from somewhere beyond the flickering candlelight. Something was with them. I started to back away, but it was too late. The shadows lunged from the corners, flooding toward the doorway, and I realized I had walked straight into a trap. Run! I shouted, urgency flooding my voice. But the shadows struck first. I plastered myself against the doorframe, heart racing as the shadows surged forward, twisting and writhing unlike anything I had ever witnessed. The twins screamed, the high pitch of their voices slicing through the chaos. I strained to find a path to them, but the darkness surged like a tide, swallowing the room and blocking my way. Get back! I yelled, frantically waving my arms. I could feel the cool edge of the key pressed against my fingers, its weight steadying me for a brief moment. Then, in the blink of an eye, the candle flickered and went out, plunging us into total darkness. Panic clawed at my throat. Help us! I heard them cry, the urgency in their voice spurring me on. I felt the shadows swaying like a living entity, and dread washed over me. Whatever I had disturbed was riled and angry, furious that I had meddled in its domain. Hold on! I shouted, summoning all the courage I could muster. I'm coming for you! I flipped my phone to its flashlight function, the beam cutting through the thick blackness just enough for me to glance around the room. And then I saw it. In the corner, a door, slightly ajar, a dim light seeping through the cracks. Beyond it, I sensed the sharpness of air beckoning me toward it. Was it a way out? I didn't hesitate. I dashed toward it, ignoring the swirling shadows that fought to reclaim their territory. Stay together, I urged, forcing the words out despite the pounding of my heart. As I reached the door, I fumbled with the handle, praying it would yield. The shadows were closer now, almost tangible, with an overwhelming sense of despair. With a hard twist, the door creaked open, scattering bits of light into the shrouded corners of the room. I peered inside. A hallway stretched before me, illuminated by an eerie glow. But I couldn't lose focus. Come on. This way. The twins emerged from the darkness, their faces streaked with fear. I could see the flickers of their expressions shift from despair to hope as they bolted toward me. We dashed through the doorway, adrenaline propelling us forward. No! The shadows hissed behind us, their voices echoing in a cacophony. I felt them reach out, frigid tendrils closing in, tugging at my hair, my clothes. But we pressed on, deeper into the corridor where the light beckoned more fiercely. Finally, we reached the end. A heavy door looming above us carved with ornate symbols mirroring those on the key I held tightly. This is it, I gasped, my voice shaky with urgency. The twins arrived at my side, grasping each other tight. And in that moment, I saw a fleeting glimmer of fear in their eyes as they gazed back into the corridor from whence we'd come. Key. One said breathlessly. I didn't need to be told twice. I thrust the key into the lock just as a wave of darkness cascaded toward us, clawing at the air. Come on. With a deep breath, I turned the key. The lock clicked, and the door swung open wide, revealing a blinding light that engulfed us. The shadows screeched in rage, the sound spiraling into the distance as we slipped through and into the unknown. The moment we crossed the threshold, the shadows dissolved into nothingness, like fog dispersing under the light of dawn. I stumbled forward, and the twins hurried in after me. The door slammed shut behind us, sealing off the darkness, and with it, the terrible weight that had haunted our every step. We stood in a clearing, the vibrant colors of life blooming around us, flowers, trees, the singing of birds filling the air where before there had only been whispers and dread. Yet even amid this beauty, a chill crept into my bones as I glanced back to find no sign of the door or the shadows, just a faint shimmer where darkness once loomed. Did we really make it? I breathed, breathless at the vivid contrast of the world around us. The twins exchanged glances, their expressions a mixture of relief and apprehension. I think so, one murmured, but doubt lingered heavier than ever, settling like a mist around us. What now? I pondered aloud, uncertainty gnawing at me. What about the house? The shadows, will they come back? I felt a disquiet settle in the pit of my stomach. Did we fight hard enough? Could it truly be over? The air, while lighter, felt tinged with something unnameable. I turned to the twins, silently questioning their fate. Will we be safe? They whispered, eyes wide, brimming with uncertainty. I looked down at the key. It felt a part of me but also out of place, heavy with a past I couldn't shake. I don't know, I admitted, holding it up. But we've got this. I still didn't fully understand what had happened, nor what I'd released. The lines between fate and free will blurred. Was the danger gone? Or was its essence woven into the very fabric of what we had escaped? As we moved deeper away from the house, I couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't truly the end. Yet in the back of my mind, whispers echoed, still haunting reminders that some doors lead to darkness, while others lead to unknown paths. As we walked away, a seed of doubt took root. Had we truly said goodbye to the twins' past, or merely delayed the inevitable? As we faded from sight, I found myself wondering, how much of this would follow us, and what would it mean for the world once more?